Imagine walking through a forest where every tree looks twisted, every insect's wings are warped, and a bird flies by with a deformed beak, as if nature itself has been mutated. What if I told you this dramatic footage is being used to push a sensational narrative, but the truth behind it is far murkier than you've been led to believe? Today, we're exposing how a viral video about the Chernobyl disaster zone is more thriller than truth. Stay with me, because what you'll discover will challenge everything you thought you knew about radiation, mutation, and wildlife. The video claims that pines in the exclusion zone twist into bizarre shapes and insects bear dramatic deformities. But here's the first red flag. Are these visuals really of the disaster's aftermath? Or recycled, misattributed, and exaggerated for effect? Let's unpack one of the most eye-catching claims. Malformed birds with deformed beaks, insects with warped patterns. The video implies it's proof of radiation-driven mutations. However, peer-reviewed studies show the picture is far more complex. Yes, there are elevated mutation rates in some species around the zone. OUP Academic +2, PubMed +2. But there's no consistent, clear-cut documentation of massive deformities across whole ecosystems, especially in larger mammals. In fact, some studies note serious methodological problems and contradictory data. Redelic +1. In other words, the sensational visuals may be cherry-picked, mislabeled, or amplified. Now here's where things get even crazier. The video says that mutated fungi inside Reactor 4 are using gamma radiation as energy, like plants doing photosynthesis. Sounds like sci-fi, right? Let's check the actual research. Yes, there are melanized fungi in highly radioactive places, even experiments on the ISS. But the claim that they're actively converting radiation into growth energy, and that this is happening broadly in the zone, is way overstated. The video presents it as fact. In real scientific literature, this remains speculative. Maybe putting the benefits of melanin to work is not the same as definitely thriving by radiation. The video omits the caveats. That's a big part of the deception. Let's shift to the animal evolution angle. The script claims wolves and dogs in the zone have adapted, become more radiation resilient, perhaps even evolving new protective genes. Intriguing, but how solid is the evidence? Recent headlines suggest that feral dogs of the zone show genetic differences. Yes, but critically, scientists emphasize they did not find clear evidence that radiation produced beneficial mutations in those dogs. DiscoverWildlife.com. One study says, we didn't find any such evidence of radiation-induced beneficial change. Popular Mechanics +1. Meanwhile, other work emphasizes data are too weak to support this hypothesis of adaptation. KnowableMagazine.org +1. In short, the video frames adaptation as a done deal, while the science says, not yet proven. Big gap. Now, the imagery of ultra-mutated insects, weird spiderwebs, deformed trees. The video uses them to build dread. But what if those images are taken out of context, mislabeled, decades old, or even from other contamination sites entirely? In the script, we saw claims like, the gaps in spiderweb strands are far too large, or red firebugs patterns are warped. But when you dig into the peer literature, you find that while insects and webs can be impacted by radiation, the results are uneven and often confounded by other environmental stressors. Redelic +1, the video omits this nuance. Worse, it doesn't cite exact studies or date stamps for the visuals, meaning we have no way to verify whether the footage is from the claimed area/time or simply selected for shock value. Next, the red forest story. Pines turning red, dying, then mutated forest. The video uses it as a dramatic backdrop. But what does the science say about its present condition? The so-called red forest around the disaster site did become distinctive. The trees died and turned brown-red after high radiation in 1986. Wikipedia +1. But The video implies the forest remains grotesquely dead and twisted everywhere today. That's misleading. Much of the area has naturally regenerated, and many of the visible trees now are younger, not directly exposed in 1986. Wikipedia. The video wants you to imagine constant Gothic ruin. Reality is more nuanced. Here's a pivotal moment. The script says thousands died immediately, and then cancer surges followed. So the wildlife must be mutated, right? But what about the human genetic legacy? Let's see what human genome studies reveal. In the video, an implied claim is that radiation has massively altered DNA across generations of humans and animals. But a major study looking at children of exposed parents found no evidence of an increase in the number or types of de novo mutations. Cancer.gov. That's a huge miss. If the human germline mutation effect is minimal, then the video's extreme visuals about generational mutation across species need far stronger proof than they show. The final narrative twist in the video. War interrupts research. Data is lost, so we might never know the full truth. It plays into conspiracy, making you believe the worst is hidden. But we must ask, is the problem that the research was perfect and got suppressed? Or that the research was never conclusive enough to begin with? Yes, research in the zone is challenged by access, war, and contamination. But the bigger issue is that many scientists flag methodological flaws, weak sample sizes, and conflicting results. For example, many of these studies have been criticized for presenting serious methodological and analytical problems. Redolink +1. So this isn't about hidden truths so much as open questions. The video presents definitive horror stories, whereas the scientific community presents nuanced uncertainty. Now, how does this all tie back into what the video sells you? A dramatic, mutated wildlife refuge, a warning to humanity, and a push to support an organization. But when you peel back the layers, you see the script relies heavily on emotional imagery, jumps from anecdote to claim, and uses weakly supported science as if it's gospel. Let's summarize. Visuals of twisted forests, deformed insects, and birds may be real footage, but likely misattributed or out of context. The claims of dramatic, widespread mutation and accelerated adaptation are not supported by conclusive peer-reviewed science. Rather, they're hypotheses or early results. Human generational DNA effects are minimal according to large genomic studies. The narrative omits nuance. High exposure zones show damage. Many zones don't. Many species have recovered. The step from some measurable effect to mass mutation drama is a leap. The video uses fear, spectacle, and a call to action. Fine, but it should be labeled dramatized, not definitive science. So here's the truth the video doesn't want you to see. Yes, the disaster at Chernobyl changed ecosystems. Yes, radiation can cause damage. But the story being told of entire forests twisting, insects warped beyond recognition, animals evolving into new species of survivors, is far more fiction than fact. If you've been moved by those visuals, I encourage you. Dig deeper, check sources, ask questions. Don't let sensationalism replace science.